Hello and welcome to episode 89 of Tom's Hirschsprung's podcast. I am joined this evening by Saffire. Saffire, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. Now, we have a couple of interesting topics that we're going to talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk about your daughter's story with Hirschsprung's, and we're going to talk about a few other topics as well that we haven't covered so much on other episodes, but I think are going to be incredibly vital. And I think a lot of people are really going to want to stick around and listen to the topics that we have to discuss. So I guess kind of start from the beginning, if that's all right with you.
Sure. I guess the beginning is in my pregnancy that was just before my Hirschsprung's daughter's pregnancy. That's when I first heard the word Hirschsprung's. I have two children that didn't have any intestinal issues, no problems. They came home from the hospital immediately. And in the end of my second pregnancy, my OBGYN ordered a genetic screening test because I started showing problems with my thyroid, and he wanted to know why. And it came up with multiple endocrine neoplasia type 2A. So yes, I have a problem with my thyroid. Um, and it came up with an association for Hirschsprung's. I Googled it. It said, oh, you would have known if you had Hirschsprung's as a baby. So, ignore that. I said, okay, I had my second daughter a week later. She had no problems. So, but I really quickly got pregnant with my Hirschsprung's baby. She was born 11 months after that pregnancy. And a nurse had come in towards the night of the first night in the hospital, and she asked me if I had changed a diaper. Um, and I said yes. And as she was walking out, I said, oh, did you change a dirty diaper? Because I realized I hadn't changed a poopy diaper yet. And I don't know why neither of us felt we could just say the word poop. Did the baby poop? But neither of us did. So when I asked her if she changed a dirty diaper, she also said yes. But she meant she had changed a pee diaper as well. And so now into the next day, we're almost at our 24-hour mark now. The baby still has not pooped. They start her with suppositories and enemas, and they're telling me that she's making progress pooping. But I had some pretty severe mental health issues at that period of time. And I remember kind of hollering the first day in the hospital that I wanted to go home and crying. And I'd been in the hospital many times before. I've had several surgeries, but I must have been really having some mental health problems with my postpartum this time. I I felt like I was trapped at the hospital. I felt like I wanted to go home, and they told me that I could go home without my baby. And with them telling me that she was making progress pooping and she'd go home in 1 or 2 days, I just went home. What are you doing? What are you doing? Can you see me? No, but you're bothering me. I'm sorry. I just figured, well, there's nothing wrong with her. I knew a little bit about Hirschsprungs, and to me, it meant they couldn't poop at all ever. I didn't do more research because they all told me that she was fine. So I figured, oh, well, she's pooping with the suppositories, and it's got nothing to do with that. That's a different word. She was early. She was my earliest baby. And when she was 5 days old, they told me that I needed to get back to the hospital. I had just gotten home from the hospital. They told me I needed to get back. Something was wrong. I went back, and she was throwing up, I think, just essentially like stomach bile. And so they had run a tube down her throat. They ambulanced her to a hospital an hour and a half away, and there they found out that she had NEC. She had gotten an intestinal infection because I mean, truthfully, just was not pooping properly. And the food that was going in just wasn't coming back out the way that it was supposed to. So they started her on antibiotics, and they stopped her feeds and started feeding her with an IV. And she was like that for a pretty long time. It was, I believe, 50 days before they tried her on a feed again. Um, And kind of as soon as they did tie her on a feed, her belly just got so swollen so fast, they did her ileostomy creation. The day after her ileostomy creation, she had a pretty decent prolapse through her mucus fistula, so they had to redo it, which is always no fun. Um, and then they sent her in a helicopter to an even bigger and even farther away children's hospital, saying that they wanted to do some sort of surgery on her now, that it would be exploratory. They would have to get in there and then see what they could find, and it would take a long time. So we said, okay, we rushed, we um, chased the helicopter pretty much because by the time we got to the hospital that she was originally at, they said, well, she got moved 2, 3 minutes ago. That helicopter just took off. So we went driving after it. We got up to the bigger hospital, the Children's Hospital in Denver. Um, and she's just peacefully sleeping with her lights off. And we said, okay, what are we doing? And they said, oh, I don't know. Did they want us to do a surgery? Oh, well, we'll meet with the surgeons tomorrow. We'll see. So we said, okay. So we sat, we fell asleep, and then the surgeon came in and he said, no, we'll do a surgery in 4 or 5 years. Do you guys want to go home? And we didn't even know, we didn't even think go home because she had just gotten an ileostomy creation a week earlier. We didn't think that she was up to her feeds yet because she wasn't quite. I mean, we know that they had removed her oxygen, but go home after we just got to this huge hospital, like we just got here. And they said, yep, go home. So we went home for a second, grabbed all our, stuff, and then we went up to the hospital. We had to stay for 4 days to, kind of learn how to do her ostomy and her irrigations and everything. Um, and that was honestly pretty hard. I have I think 80 notes in my phone from that little NICU stay of trying to remember how to do everything. And she was on an antibiotic as well because they just, I guess, have to keep the antibiotic for several months after the infection is gone just to make sure. I think it's like a 3 month standard. So bring her home. We have no idea what to do with this baby. I had two other babies that they loved to eat, and all they loved was to eat. And they pooped and they pooped and they peed and they ate. But this baby, she's tiny. So she looks to me like she's a newborn, but she's not. She's 3 months old. She acts like a 3 month old baby, but she looks like a newborn. I found out pretty quickly that she could not lay flat on her back. When she laid flat on her back, she could spit up from one side of a room to the other side.
Wow.
And yeah, she does it almost every time. So we figured out no laying on the back. And I keep testing it too, thinking she's gonna grow out of it, but she has not grown out of it. So she has to sleep sitting up. So I get, several ways to sit her up: a baby chair, a baby swing, little baby rocking chair, whatever. It's it's all good. But I'm really fighting with the brand that I was using for her ostomy bags. They didn't do anything. They didn't hold a single ounce of liquid. They were always falling off. They didn't even act like they were sticking to her. So I was getting medical tape and just taping it on. And I couldn't afford to get onto a website, find a different brand, and just order it. That wasn't going to be possible. I needed her insurance to do it. So I posted on Facebook, and somebody on my friends list had heard the word Hirschsprungs before, and she saw ileostomy. So she said, "Oh, join the group, join the group." So I joined the group. I post my daughter. I say, "I don't know what I'm doing. The bags won't stay. I'm scared." And they said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa. First of all, you call this phone number, you send an email to here. Look at what I did with my son. Oh, I had those bags. No, those suck. Do these ones." And I said, "Okay." So I got in contact with a representative of a different Hirschsprungs or of a different ostomy company, and they sent me samples. And I felt like I was in heaven because after about 4 months of a bag never staying on. She's having four, five, six bag changes a day. I put a bag on and it didn't leak until day six. Oh, that was my favorite thing ever. I called my insurance. I said, pretty please. They said, okay. So now we get the new bags. It took me a while to figure out with the new wafers because it's a completely different system. But once I got it, I do get her bags to hold 5 or 6 days now. And I thought people were making that up when they said 5 or 6 days, but she holds. She has prolapsed twice now. One was a parental user error. We didn't even figure that there's not a place that you could touch her on her stomach because we had other kids. So my husband, he'd grabbed her around the midsection so that he can get the chuck out from underneath her and put down another one because I guess it was wet. It's just keeps the changing table dry and stuff. And he had her and he set her back down, but just that pressure popped that stoma right out. I think we prolapsed about 6 centimeters that time. No fun. We sugared, we pressure, we looked it up. We got some a little cooling pack, and everything we did, it just kept coming at us. So we had to take her up to the children's hospital, and they asked us things like, "Have you tried to push it in yet?" I said, "Yes." So they tried, and of course, they also cannot get it in. They, I believe, brought in a surgeon to try one more time. And when he couldn't get it in, then they sedated her and they had her under pain medication. And then they finally got it. And I was asking them, like, now that this has happened, can it just happen again? Will it just pop back out? And they're saying, well, there's always a possibility that it'll pop back out, but not necessarily. It looks pretty good to me. So I said, okay. So I go about my business. I had her in a chair in her room and she starts coughing. So I immediately run over because I think anytime that anything touches her, she's gonna prolapse again. So she starts coughing. I unbuckle her, I check, and I see it's getting a little bit bigger. And I said, no, no, no. Put my hands on it, Googled it again. It said to keep it cold. So that's what I did is I just grabbed a little cold washcloth and I stuck it on it. I checked a little while later and it seemed fine. So thankfully we haven't had a massive prolapse again. But one of what we're looking at right now is that they're thinking when she's 3, 4, when she's potty trained, they'll look into her surgery and see what we can do there. She's gonna need to be able to be potty trained for it to work, or else she'll burn, of course. So, and then in the meantime, we're just struggling and fighting with her nutrition. She's 9 months old. She doesn't sit up yet. She's getting really close. And she'll start eating by mouth with her spoon, and then she'll stop and then she'll do it again. So we're just working. I mean, she's not severely underweight or anything. She's just not really gaining any right now, but she doesn't seem unhealthy and her doctors don't seem scared. So right now it seems like she's doing all right. We just have a little while to hold on here before something else happens.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. That's so good to hear that she's doing really well, and what a fascinating story as well. And I'll just pick up a couple of bits, just on the bags and the ileostomies. And I've seen this. I mean, even ever since I had my stoma, which was 30 odd years ago, the bags that are made, are they still adult-sized bags, or do they make smaller ones?
They do make smaller ones, and that was actually kind of our problem.
Right.
They had given her a preemie bag in the hospital, and then they moved her up to newborn. But by the time she came home from the hospital, she wasn't a newborn. She was beyond the weight limit for the bag. She was 3 months old. I needed a bigger size bag. It's actually really cool what's available in the bag now. I've seen how they have preemie and then newborn, and they have toddler bags and then children age bags and then into adults. And then the adult bags, you see that they'll have like adult small or adult medium, all the way up to like adult extra, extra large for heavier people or people with heavier outputs. They really do have a variety in the bags. I just had the wrong one.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's so good to hear. Because again, I mean, it's really good that technology, I guess technology is a word for this, has moved on to the point where it's not just sort of they try and put the same or try and treat everybody the
Yeah.
same. I think because it is such a specialized condition, and there's so many different variants. And I know that hospitals don't necessarily talk in terms of short segment Hirschsprungs or long segment Hirschsprungs. I think they tend to talk in more these amounts of centimeters of the intestine don't have ganglion cells. Was that explained to you in that way, or did they use words like short segment and long segment?
So at first, I believe the first word we heard was long segment at her first NICU. But when they moved her to the second NICU, they told us that um, because they had taken a biopsy from where they did her ileostomy creation, they can tell us that that was. It looked like a place where right where the ganglion cells met the aganglionic cells. So they're thinking that's where her Hirschsprungs ended, which they're thinking then means that she is total colonic, with the word they used was extended segment. So all the way up from her ileum through her entire colon. That's what they're thinking. So we're not 100% sure yet. Her symptoms were not really consistent with having no healthy intestine, but we did pull some Hirschsprung's tissue all the way up from her ileostomy creation. So her file says total colonic with extended segment. I know that extended segment and long segment are the same thing and that just different hospitals say different words. But I did not get any actual measurements. I just got those words on there.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because I speak to people um, all over the world, and especially in America and the UK, they've started to use that sort of numbers system of X amount of centimeters or X amount of um, the large intestine or small intestine or both are affected. But interestingly, they kind of went with the total colonic um, way of saying it. That's interesting because I thought it would be more the other way around, but it's yeah, very very interesting, very interesting. But again, it's also possibly easier to know that whether it's short segment, long segment, you then have more of an idea rather than say X amount of centimeters. Does that make it easier or trickier? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I thought when I did hear, when I did start seeing people talk in centimeters on the Facebook groups. I was just thinking, I kind of don't know what that means though, because I know how long that would be, but I know that your intestines, they're not a straight line. So I don't know how much you have. I don't know how much that is of it. I do know that I was told my daughter had a 33% creation, which I think they were saying meant that it was about 33% of the way through her digestive system that they created it, but I actually don't know how mathematical that is.
No, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And I know there's a couple of other points you talked about, and I know there's one big point in particular, the miscommunication between both hospitals or hospital staff and yourself, and because I find it's something that is. is so important, and that communication at whether the child has passed meconium. And it's something again that, I mean, 4,999 people out of 5,000 won't have to worry about because they will just pass the meconium. But that one in 5,000, give or take, where they do have Hirschsprungs and they haven't passed, I guess that must be incredibly difficult for them when they say, "Oh, they have," but then your child hasn't passed meconium.
Yeah, I very much do think that if my hospital staff where my daughter was born um, were just possibly more well trained or more interested in their jobs, that my daughter may have not ever gotten her intestinal infection. I knew the word Hirschsprungs. I knew that word. I knew kind of what it meant. Had I known my daughter didn't poop, I, of course, would have said it. But I was also dealing with severe mental health problems. And what I don't understand is how I could be calling out to leave the hospital with still preeclamptic blood pressure just because I'm scared. I didn't want to spend the night. I don't remember what I was feeling. And the hospital could just let me. How they couldn't bring in mental health resources, why they didn't make me sign papers saying that it's against medical advice. They just let me. I've had three C-sections, three of them. My first C-section, I was 17 years old, and I stayed in the hospital for 4 days. My second C-section was just immediately following my Hirschsprung's, or was just immediately before my Hirschsprung's baby, and I stayed for 2 days. Never have I ever stayed for, 15 hours, 16 hours. And I don't hear from other people during a C-section that that's how long they stay. My blood pressure was high, but I was, I guess, having some form of um, panic attack. And so they just let me leave. And if I had gotten mental health resources like they should have sent into the room, um, I would have been in the hospital with her to see that she wasn't going to the bathroom. Nobody was communicating from the nursery that I left her in with me with the exactly how she was going with the bathroom. Just they were saying things like, now she is, and she did this one on her own. They weren't telling me how often they were doing enemas. But I found out after they moved her to a different NICU that for those first 5 days, to get her to move her fecal matter whatsoever, they were doing an enema every 6 hours and four suppositories a day. And if they had told me that, I would have thought, well, that's too much. If the baby was going to go, the baby would go. But they didn't offer mental health resources. They didn't communicate properly. And I found out that pretty much every time they got into my little file next to me, where I have a specific preference not to have narcotic pain medication, so that they can reference that, says the word Hirschsprungs right next to the word men too. It says it. I remember a nurse asking me right before I had the baby when I was getting prepped for my C-section, um, if I had Hirschsprung's myself, because the anesthesiologist saw it on the thing, and he just needs to know if I've had any surgeries or whatever like that. I said no, and he said, "Oh, okay, well that must be some form of genetic then." I said, "Sure." But if he was able to see that, and at least somebody in the hospital knows what that means, how come it wasn't referenced again?
I That sounds like a monumental mistake of just
Mhm.
people not thinking and people not kind of going, okay, Hirschsprung's is mentioned because you're, I guess, you're in a slightly different position than people I speak to, or other people I've spoken to, in the fact that you knew what Hirschsprung's was. I mean, I speak to so many people who've never had a Hirschsprung's baby before, and the word is mentioned to them, and it means absolutely nothing because it just They have no idea what it could be. Could it be a foot illness? Could it be an arm illness? You know,
Mhm.
I mean, Hirschsprung's it doesn't even give a clue away that it's a bowel condition. There's
Mhm.
nothing in the word that says that. So when people say, "Oh, your child is suspected of Hirschsprung's or may have Hirschsprung's," they tend to look quite blankly back at them and think, "What on earth is that?" But you were in a different position where you knew what Hirschsprung's was. You'd even referenced that in your notes, and yet still it didn't seem as though it was properly investigated or even thought of. I mean, did they even sort of? Because again, classic signs were sort of there, weren't they? The bile, the vomiting, the
Mhm.
lack of meconium. You explain all of the classic in inverted commas signs of Hirschsprung's, yet nothing was brought up. I mean, that's quite concerning, I guess.
Mhm. She landed at the children's hospital because the hospital she was born at, it just doesn't have a NICU. We live in a small town. So they just moved her up to where there was the first closest NICU. She got there, and I immediately started communicating with those doctors. That was when I got so set that I needed to know if that was Hirschsprung's. I finally got back into my test. I Google searched it. I learned as much as I could, and I was talking to the surgeon up at the Children's Hospital to see what they thought. And he said, "Okay, well, here's what we'll do is we'll order a suction rectal biopsy." I said, "Thank you." And then he didn't do it for about a month. My
Month,
daughter was born in the middle of November, and they didn't suction rectal biopsy her until the day after Christmas.
a month. That's that's unbelievable. I mean, again, from people I've spoken to, you're looking within the first few sort of 48 hours, sort of
Hmm.
few days maybe, to then a month. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you how did she cope for a month, you know, not being able to
Uh,
have sort of insides working properly?
Not well. I have struggled with mental health my entire life, and it gets significant after I've had my three children. I get very, very bad postpartum depression, but this time I was told that I was working through postpartum trauma just because the all three of my deliveries were incredibly painful. They were all surgeries and some with follow-up surgeries. But by the time my daughter was in the NICU, and it had been a month and they still hadn't tested yet, my C-section scar was still open. And I had a baby at home, an 11-month-old baby at home. Um, I could not find the correct way to focus on when they were doing the test. So honestly, to me, it didn't feel like a month because none of that time felt like it was as long as it actually was until I got, proper treatment for my mental health. So to me, it felt like as soon as they said they were going to do it, then they did it. Now, looking back, I can see where I have hundreds of notes in my phone from the days that she spent in the NICU. I continuously took down every single new weight, every new x-ray to see if she had gotten rid of the infection. And I was talking to them every day about things like when are they going to test her? But my memory now, it kind of floated by so much faster than that. She was in the NICU for 74 days. And it took 30, 40 some days to find out that it was even Hirschsprung's. Um, and then after that, they were talking about scheduling her for a quick pull through procedure that got thrown off the table when her belly got, too full and they had to do her ileostomy, where then they threw away the idea that we were going to have that pull through because now the Hirschsprung's, it's far too high up. So I never knew what was going on. It I tried not to just sit and freak out about it. I had so many other things that I needed to be consistently looking at. And in my head, these people were professionals, and I can see her on the video camera at the NICU. So I just figured this must be how they're supposed to do all of these things. This must be the way it's supposed to be done. I think they said they didn't do her biopsy because she had an infection, but I'm really not sure because it took them 5 days. It took her 5 days to really develop that infection. And I feel like we could have had a biopsy before then as well, like most other Hirschsprung's babies do have.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely, and
Mhm,
obviously that the longer it goes on. I mean, you said 74 days there,
mhm,
and around 40 days to even sort of see the word Hirschsprungs. The longer that goes on, obviously that isn't going to be any good for you personally as well.
mhm.
And that's going to be obviously incredibly difficult. What did you? I know you talked about writing notes, and you talked about um, jotting everything down, every weight, everything that happened. Was there anything in particular that you did going through that time that really helped you to cope?
I think mainly it was putting away my breast milk. I did know that when she was first moved to the uh, second hospital that she was never going to be able to drink it. She has a cow's milk protein allergy. And because I have some complicated dietary needs, removing dairy wasn't possible. But I felt like continuing to pump, continuing to save the milk, to label them. I wrote her notes on the milk, that this is when I pumped this. I was thinking about her, that I did this one on a video chat with her. I did this one while I was giving her her medication in the NICU, that sort of thing. They all say where they came from. They all say something to her. She still will never be able to drink them. And now I have no freezer space in my garage. I think that it was very helpful because it helped me hold on to this idea that magically she'd be able to have the breast milk one day. And it was the same idea that magically she will just stop being sick one day. Magically she'll just feel all better one day. And even though no, we didn't just, magic wand the Hirschsprungs off of her, I watched her start feeling so much better. She has some problems with the spitting up. It's usually just when she lays down, but when she first came home, she looked like a sick baby. She was so thin. She could not tolerate eating as much as she was supposed to. And I remember, I mean, crying, asking her if she would please just try to get to the minimum amount that she is supposed to eat, and telling her that I was sorry that she couldn't because I knew she was hungry. She was just so weak. And now I will make her bottle and she'll grab it and she'll chug it and she'll throw it and she'll say, "Hey, give me another one." So I said, I just told to my husband yesterday when she did that, that's a long way away from the baby in the NICU that they said may never eat by mouth. I think she seems a lot better.
Definitely. Oh, that must be so good to see as well. Obviously, talked through a lot of the things that you've been through and that your daughter's been through, and that must be so good to see that now she is drinking and now she's, not just, as you said, taking the bare minimum, but
Hmm.
actually, drinking like any other baby would, I guess.
Hmm. She's hungry, that's for sure. She'll take some bites of food and seem really excited about it, and then just like I think just completely lose the ability to eat again, act like she's choking if you try to feed her. But I really don't feel like that has to do with her Hirschsprungs. I think that I have a very particular little girl on my hands, and she needs to be faced the correct direction. She needs to be reclined the correct amount. And sometimes she just doesn't want to eat something. It, is hard sometimes because I know she's at the eating age, but the formula that she's on, it's an extremely high caloric density because she's been so light for so long. And it has added iron and things like that in. So if she's not ready to just really eat solid foods yet, she will be fine. Um, it was fun watching her. She got stuck at a diaper size and a clothing size for just the longest time. No weight went on her body. I just struggled to keep her from losing weight. And I ran through a load of laundry. It had gotten really hot outside, so I usually just leave my girls in a diaper throughout the day because it's hot and nobody's at my house. So finally, it's been 3, 4 days. I go get my load of laundry because I'm going to dress my girls. And I grab a onesie. I try to put it on Aurora. That doesn't fit. So I go into the storage of her older sister's onesies. I go up one size, put it on her. That doesn't fit. I go up two sizes. Now finally that fits. That girl skyrocketed on 4 pounds and two clothing sizes in about a week and a half.
That's so good to hear. I mean, that must have been, yeah, I mean, that must have been really surprising, I guess, as well.
Yep, I think she overheard me calling her small the day before. And so when she went to bed that night, she just grew.
That is one thing about us people with Hirschsprungs. We are very resilient. We are
Mhm,
very stubborn to a certain extent because we have been through a lot of pain medication and
mhm,
surgeries. And one thing you will tend to find, if it's like anybody else I've met with Hirschsprungs, is that pain tolerance will be pretty high.
mhm. I would
And then
imagine.
yeah, and then with that you get a lot of resilience as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that would kind of be it's good to look forward to in the future.
Yeah, she is the happiest baby that I've ever seen. I've been around tons of babies. I've got several of my own, and I've got several nieces, nephews. There's always a baby somewhere. She is the happiest baby. She laughs more than any other baby. She smiles more than any other baby. I know that even just with her actual siblings, they needed something to smile at. You needed to be doing something funny or showing them something funny. But Aurora, she will smile just because she saw you. And oh boy, does she love you. And oh boy, is she just so happy. She'll lay in her swing and just be perfectly relaxed about to go to sleep. And I'll think, oh, her swing stopped. So I'll start it. And oh, now she's so happy because somebody started her swing. She is just the happiest baby. Everything's funny for some reason. Even when we're not making jokes, she thinks her big brother is so funny. He'll come out and he'll just say, "Oh, hi, Aurora. What are you doing?" And she's just laughing. Her brother is a comedian.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's so good to hear. And I guess it kind of leads into my final question. I know you've just spoken a little bit there about how she is, how she's getting on. And I
Mhm.
guess sort of both medically and non-medically, what do you see in the future for Aurora?
I have an idea of a couple of upcoming surgeries that she's going to be much older for. So for that, I try not to put too much of a picture in my mind. That way I can just see it when we're there. I don't want to picture it wrong. But I do know that when it comes to just her, she's gonna be fine no matter what they do. She's gonna be the kind of kid that makes every friend in preschool. I'm not worried about her. I can tell as a baby here that she is going to be a very kind child. You can see it on her. She has very kind eyes. And when I'm changing her system and she's got a burn on her that I'm sure hurts, she's always just looking straight at me like she's trying to tell me that I'm going to be okay for seeing this. I think no matter what happens with her and what surgeries they do, Aurora is going to be okay.
Brilliant. Oh, well, that's absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for coming on, for sharing Aurora's story, and for being so open as well about your journey. Because I can guarantee, again, having spoken to many mothers, you are not alone in that situation of feeling sort of a little bit helpless, a bit like, what on earth is going on? And thank you so much for being brave enough to share that, because undoubtedly it will. I get several mothers who listen to this show, and undoubtedly several may have gone through similar similar situations. So again, I wish you, Aurora, and the rest of your family the very, very best for the future.
Thank you.